leading the revolution of talk radio. Doug Hoerth on AM News Talk 1360.
I asked Matt Pritt, who's Lynn Cullen's producer and also occasional talk shows. Should we do a Lynn show next Tuesday, you say?
Yes.
Next Tuesday, we'll be filling in for Lynn. She's got Passover, and I've got a couple of days where I have to attend to some business. And you guys talked about Tony Snow this morning. I don't know what you can say about it, really, over and above how tragic, yada, yada,
exactly.
yada, yada. And I was saying on the air earlier, where was his first? Now it went to the liver.
His first cancer was in his colon.
And I see. It was colon cancer.
Colon
Spread to the liver. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I had said that I didn't think the man looked that well ever since it was first diagnosed, which would make sense because of all of the treatment I'm sure that he had been receiving in the process. Did anybody call in to gripe about Hoerth's interview with Edwards by any chance?
Actually, no.
Nobody should have, because she's been taking it on the blogs, and a couple of editorial op-ed writers have said that she was unfair in her interview. I did not see it, but I read the transcript, and I thought to myself, if she did not ask those questions, namely, people have said that you are bringing this up now for this, that, and that, they would have said you're softballing the guy. She had to ask the question. She apparently asked him in a courteous style. I'm not America's number one Katie Couric fan. I can't stand
it. I agree.
But that's neither here nor there. I thought, man, they're really coming after this chick for the wrong reasons.
I would tend to agree on that. I mean, it's not necessarily that you're trying to disrespect them or what they're going through. It's the fact of the matter that it's a question some people have, and it needs to be asked.
Limbaugh didn't get in trouble. People tried to make a big deal out of it because he said, look, this is a jump start to the Edwards campaign. I got news for you. It was a jump start to the Edwards campaign because nobody was paying any attention to John Edwards until this terrible thing did indeed happen. And if they used it to some political positiveness or political advantage, truth be to tell, I could understand that. I wouldn't find anything necessarily the matter. That doesn't mean the woman came down with cancer to advance this presidential cause.
Exactly.
That is not what I am saying. But you have a situation like that. You are running, and if you decide to make the most of it because you know the media exposure is going to be there, I have no problem with that.
I think when you're doing this, especially this early of a stage, you need to be as open as possible. If something were to happen on the campaign trail and they don't come out with this, then they're going to be, why did you put your wife through this? Why didn't you tell anyone? All along those lines. It's better just to get it out there, say, listen, this is what we're going through.
Yeah,
we're
of course.
And by the same token, we're going to stay with this because we want to do this. It's a passion of ours, and it's actually at least for her, and I guess to a certain degree for him, it's a way of living as opposed to planning to die.
Well, that's a whole other issue because they decided based on she wants him, she believes, yada, 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 and this is what consenting adults decide, and apparently they're going to try and get their kids to spend more time with them. How you do that with the school year, God only knows, all the school's up in June. If that's what they decide, I would never criticize that. That is a decision between consenting adults who love each other. Having said that, I did hypotheticals on the air. If you told me that my wife had a recurrence of her cancer and because of same life expectancy was probably going to be curtailed dramatically, I don't care if I were running for president, emperor, or God, I would drop out in a heartbeat. Even if my wife said, oh, honey, your legacy or this or that and the other thing, I would say, no, thank you. We've got money. I'm being hypothetical because I haven't got any. We've got money to burn. Let's do this. Let's do that. We're not going to stop living. We're going to travel. We're going to this. You got your law office. You got your this. But to continue through that godforsaken world swirl for the next year, that is not something that I could do. And if my wife insisted I do it, I'd say my heart wouldn't be in it. Which it would. And again, that's not to be critical of them. If you were in that position, do you think you would continue on even if your wife urged you to? And again, you haven't got a wife and I haven't either. I'm just
I really don't know. I mean, one of the things you say...
I know you don't know, but I was curious if you could hypothesize, because that's what I always do, just know.
I mean, you bring up the one aspect, they have money, they can do whatever. Maybe this is what they love to do.
And I understand that. This is good for them. I am merely saying that if it were me, and I'm Doug Hoerth running for president, and there's a Mrs. Hoerth, but our background and everything else is the same as the Edwardses, all right? Me, Doug Hoerth, even if Mrs. Hoerth said, I think the country needs you, yada, 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 my answer would be, as Doug Hoerth, not John Edwards, hey, baby, I haven't got a snowball's chance in hell of getting the nomination anyway, for God's sake. Let's drop out now and let's just go and have a blast, because you only live once, and after you're done here, you ain't going nowhere else. But that's
well, if she wanted me to stay in, I would probably stay in.
See,
because at that point, I think you want to respect her wishes as much as anything else. If I were to pull out at this point and she wanted me to stay in, she may very well personally take the blame for it.
My theory is that I would be miserable if I continued to campaign. I would not want to continue to campaign. I've been around, maybe you have too. I've been around people with cancer in my life. I've lost friends. I've lost friends to cancer. And my theory is you live once. This is it.
Right.
After you're dead, no afterlife, no nothing, you become civilized roadkill. You only have so many years, so let's make the most of the years you have. Anyway, jumping over to the Republican side, isn't it amazing that the family value Republicans, every presidential candidate has been married at least 47 times. Don't you love it? Newt's been married 3 times too, you know.
Yes.
Newt and Rudy, and they keep talking about Fred Thompson. I got news for you. He's on at least wife number 2 also. They just had a baby about a year ago.
Right.
So there's a little hanky-panky, I don't say hanky-panky, but a little. I think it's great.
From my perspective, and I admit I'm a Democrat, I find it funny because to me family values plays so little into my personal vote that it doesn't matter to me, but I find it highly ironic that everyone on their side of the fence is apoplectic about this.
The ironic part that I find is that they are forgiving Gingrich sins for which they never would have forgiven Clinton. All right, and I'm talking about the sin of why you're saying impeach us, but you're having an affair.
Right.
There are still conservatives who are trying to rationalize that away as being different because Clinton was about breaking the law. That's what they never understood. It wasn't about breaking the law of the American public. It was about sex.
Right.
The guy cheated on his old lady. There's not a husband alive who wouldn't deny it. If you caught me in bed with another woman, I would deny it. Okay.
That's why he walked out of that more popular than he walked into.
Of course, absolutely, because he gave the human response, which was to lie through his teeth.
Exactly. I mean, everyone understands that this is exactly how a lot of people would have handled it, and they also saw through the whole, he lied on the stand thing. They know exactly what it was about.
Of course, it was about sex. Symbolically, it had everything in the world to do with sex. But the other interesting thing is Thompson, who I happen to like a lot. I don't think Fred Thompson dreamed of this a year ago, but he looked at this field and said, my God, some social conservatives will forgive, some won't. Some like McCain, some don't, yada, yada. I watched McCain, by the way, do one of these town hall meetings. You may love him, you may hate him, folks. The guy is great. He has still got such a grasp on everything that is going on around the world. Just impresses the living daylights out of you. But his campaign does seem to have stalled big time.
I think the problem or the difference between Newt and, say, Giuliani, where you can sit here and say, well, they both had 3 wives or whatever. Giuliani also has a voting record and issues that are different than a lot of social conservatives. And Newt went to the church of James Dobson and sat there and said, please forgive me.
I've got a guy coming on the show from U.S. News and World Report who has written a book called The Jesus Machine. It's about Dobson and focus on family. And the reason I wanted to get the guy on the show is I had read some reviews, both in conservative and liberal publications, that said it was an even-handed account. And it is. It is. I'm about halfway through it. Nevertheless, folks, I can't stand these people. Oh, my God, these moral absolutists will drive you nuts. And they are, let me finish, what are the Bush states, the blue states or the red states?
The Bush states would be the red states.
Oh, is it the red states? Okay. You get out into Oklahoma. This guy who won in Oklahoma, Dobson won that for him. The guy who beat Daschle, the guy who beat Daschle, Dobson won that for him, too. They have enormous clout.
Yes.
People talk about Robertson and those guys. They're not the guys with the clout. It's this guy, Dobson, and this focus on family, which is more than just a political action thing. And they do much good work, too. It's just that moral certainty that they have and that everybody is a sinner and everything is a commie plot that drives me up.
And that's why Newt had to throw himself at the feet of James Dobson and say, please forgive me.
Exactly. If you're going to go to somebody, that's the guy you go to.
That's the guy you go to.
The Oprah of the right. So who does Colin think is going to get the Democratic nomination? She thinks.
I think she's an Obama person.
But she has a realistic belief he's not going to beat Hillary.
I don't know. I just know she seems to be in
Oh,
a
yeah,
Barack
nothing the matter
Obama
with
person.
nothing the matter with
Hey,
it.
I said it was going to be Edwards, so I'm the third
it's
horse in that race.
It was never going to be Edwards. It was never going to be Edwards. And guys like Chris Dodd, who just got a ton of money from somebody, and Dennis Kucinich, who got a ton of money from the one and only Sean Penn, who did his usual stupid impersonation. You're a better actor than you are a political spokesperson, Sean. And even in that movie where you were going to be electrocuted, I couldn't wait for you to die. You remember that movie? Was what's her
Dead Man
face?
Walking.
Tim Robbins' wife, Susan Sarandon.
Susan Sarandon, yeah.
I couldn't wait for him to die in that film. He was so annoying. He
Yeah, it was
really
Dead
and
Man
truly
Walking,
was.
yeah.
What was it? Dead Man Walking. It's a terrible movie. I'm gonna die. Good, you deserve to. You're overacting. Get out of my sight. Anyway, who does Lynn on the more? Do you have any idea?
Tomorrow, I think we're open.
All right. Well, that's 9 a.m. until 12.
That just means I didn't do my job.
No, it just means you're open. That's all it means. I'm not trying to read anything into the material that isn't there. Thank you, Matthew. We'll see you later.
Sure, no problem.
Speaking of Barack, Richard Cohen says, I was whiling away my youth as an insurance investigator, Cohen of claims. I met the lovely Penny, a wise, beautiful woman who utterly changed my life. She invited me to her family summer place at the beach. The old house had a screened-in porch. It was there, my first morning, I encountered her father. He was dressed in khaki shorts, sitting on his typewriter, completing yet another book. I decided then and there that he had precisely the life I wanted. He was a writer. I tell you the story to suggest something about Barack Obama. In his memoir, Dreams from My Father, he recounts a watershed moment of his own, a revelation, a violent awakening, an incident that permanently altered his vision. These are quotes. Twice, he tells how as a 9-year-old, he went to the U.S. Embassy in Indonesia, a country where his mother had taken him to live, and came across a Life magazine article about a black man who had tried to whiten his skin through some sort of chemical process. The result was a disaster. Obama wrote, and I still have not read this book, and I've had it at home for weeks, I felt my face and neck get hot. My stomach knotted. The type began to blur on the page. I hope the rest of the book is better than that sentence. The child had, for the first time, confronted racism and its hideous consequences. There's only one problem. There was no such issue of Life magazine. Chicago Tribune went through the Obama memoir with commendable thoroughness. Newspaper conducted more than 40 interviews with former classmates, teachers, friends, and neighbors from Obama's youth, and found both trivial and substantial differences between the stories Obama tells and those recalled by others. What emerges from the Tribune's reporting is a man who seems much less fixated than he insists on finding his racial identity. When the Trib told Obama that Life magazine historians could find no such story, Obama suggested it might have been Ebony. Or it might have been, who knows what it was. The Tribune says Ebony's archivist also could not come up with such an article. Indeed, the memory of the event, non-event, is so firmly planted in Obama's mind that it seems to have become an emotional truth for him far more powerful than the intellectual truth. 2 and 2 are 4. That's an intellectual truth for you. But America is a uniquely great country. That's an emotional truth, and I'm far more likely to die for the latter than the former, so I suspect are you. My own emotional truth concerns Penny and her father. Years later, when I reconnected with Penny, I mentioned that day on the porch and how much it meant to me. No such porch, she told me. I insisted otherwise and did not relent until she sent me a picture of the home. No porch. Still, I like the story my way. In Obama's case, and maybe my own, there might be something more than foggy memory at work. He may be manipulating the facts. Oh, heavens to Betsy. He may be manipulating the facts in order to wrap raw ambition in the gauze of a larger cause. Sheer ambition is no longer tolerated in American public life. Obama was only 34 when his memoir was published, but he was already on his way, a successful packager of himself. He already knew, I suspect, that a public figure, he was already the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review, has to have both a cause and a backstory. The PT-109 incident that changes a life, and which, by the way, is balderdash. The PT-109 incident that changes a life. The rural poverty that has such an impact on a boy from Plains. The hope that comes to a man from Hope. No one can seem too ambitious careerist. Only CEOs can seem to be out for themselves. That's because if they do well, or so they insist, so do their shareholders. The tendency to manipulate facts may bear watching in Obama. After all, we hardly know him. But while his book is a warning flag, it is also an astounding display of a supple first-class mind, not merely a bright fellow, but an insightful one, and the single best piece of writing by a politician since John Kennedy's Profiles in Courage, which is another lie. John Kennedy no more wrote Profiles in Courage than I did! The man had a ghost! Richard, why don't you tell the truth? JFK, of course, is the politician to whom Obama is most often compared. The wit, the physical grace, the eloquence, the youth. Understandable but superficial. The politician who really understood that life should unwind like a movie, the arc, the reveal, the backstory, etc., was Ronald Reagan. He always starred in his own movie, and so it seems does Obama. Interesting. Very interesting. It's a minor point. Very, very minor point, but did he make that little sucker up out of whole cloth? Hillary's done that before. What was the thing that Al Gore told? There was some whopper that Gore told, and I cannot recall what it was.
Oh, that he invented the internet?
Well, that's one, yeah. But there was another one that he told, and no offense to Richard Cohen or to Barack Obama. Obama says he was 9 years old when he saw this and blah, 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 and nobody can find out what it was that he was talking about. My conjecture is that maybe he saw the movie Black Like Me, in which James Whitmore takes some kind of a drug to become a black. There was actually a book written about this. It was based on the book. And then it shows him pretending to be black and encountering black people and white people and all the rest of it. That could be the inspiration for this. Again, it's a minor point, but Cohen is right. It does bear watching. Think about that for a second. Because I'm saying to myself, would I have made a mistake of that proportion? No. My memory's better than that, honest to God. 333-1360-412 is our area code. Why giving out the phone number? I haven't got anything to talk about. It's 21 after 4, so we'll just shut up and take a break. 25 minutes after 4 o'clock. Yo, Jim and the Car, you're on AM News Talk 1360.
Hey, Doug, I think I've got the Al Gore story for you that I recall. I think it was during the 2000 election. Didn't he tell a group of people that he and Tipper were the inspiration for the
Love
movie
Story?
Love Story.
Love Story. And Eric Siegel basically said, what the hell are they talking about?
yeah. And I got another one for you while we're on the subject.
Sure.
When Bill Clinton was president, he and Hillary went to New Zealand for a state visit. And Hillary had a speaking engagement, and she told the people of New Zealand that her mother always told her that she was named after Sir Edmund Hillary because she was so inspired.
I heard that. Yes, I heard this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the people in New Zealand just ate it up because Sir Edmund Hillary was from New Zealand. But when you check the facts, Sir Edmund Hillary, he climbed Mount Everest like 4 or 5 years after Hillary was born.
I remember that. I'll tell you one. I wish I could remember the specific, but Reagan was quoted. Excuse me. There was a whopper that Reagan had told, something to do with World War II. I don't recall the auspices, just what it was he said. I wish I could. I'm going to go nuts now trying to remember it. Anyway, it turned out that Reagan was not giving a first-hand account of this World War II incident. He was giving an account of a movie, all right? Well, there was a very fine journalist by the name of Harrison Salisbury, who wrote for years for the New York Times, who included this anecdote in his book. He included it to show what an idiot Reagan was. When I had Harrison Salisbury on the show, I pointed out to him with documentation that Reagan was quoting a movie. Do you think that Harrison Salisbury tried to have that corrected in his book? He didn't give two tinkers you know what. It was a hate Reagan story, and he went with it.
Well, I remember when Hillary made her comment about Sir Edmund Hillary, it was quickly rebuffed, and her supporters said, well, she was just trying to raise awareness.
Yeah, right.
You know, I tell you what, Doug, anytime somebody in the news, I don't care who they are, I don't care what the issue is, if somebody tells me they're just trying to raise awareness, I want to run from the room screaming.
I'm with you, pal. I'm with you. And it's the little things like this. I don't know if they tell you about the bigger things or not. I just plain don't know. Going back to Mr. Obama and say, it's a tiny thing. Maybe he saw it on television, maybe whatever. Maybe it's a nothing. But when they do stuff like that, they lose a lot of points with me. Gore told another one about the cigarette smoking and his sister, and I can't remember the rest of the story on that.
I think it was at the DNC that one year.
Yeah, I thought it was at the convention in a speech or something. He told something about his sister dying of cancer and blah, 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 and it turned out he had voted for tobacco subsidy, or his father had voted for tobacco subsidy, or something like that. And this was not a teeny tiny one. This was a biggie. And it wasn't like Barack Obama with the picture of the guy taking the chemical. This was a biggie. I just can't remember the details of it, and I should. Maybe somebody out there in Radio Land will fill me in. Where's my brain? I left it in the other room. Anyway, stuff like that drives me berserk. It drives me crazy. And for God's sake, why do you have to make that crap up? You know. Now, Ravenstall got some heat over that incident down at the ball yard, and then he got some heat on the thing in New York. And, first there was a bit of a denial. Then, if he had said, I got a bit of a gripe with somebody, and I told him I'm Luke Ravenstall, watch your butt, I don't think anybody would have cared one way or the other. Speaking of which, I don't know that chick. I've said this before. I don't know that cop who's in trouble for bailing out her buddy. You saw that story again in the paper. Post-Gazette's making a big deal out. I've said it before. I've said it again. If I'm drunk and I'm a cop, and I got a cop who'll bail me out without anybody knowing about it, I'm going to call that cop. And if that cop helps me, I owe them for life. And if I were a cop, truth be to tell, if I were a cop and my buddy got in a jam, nobody was hurt, everybody walked away from the thing, boop-a-da-boop, and you called me and said, listen, can you come and bail my butt out? I'll be honest with you, I'd probably do it. And I think most of you would too. 4:30 a.m. News Talk 1360. There's a story in Vanity Fair, I think it's April, mostly on David Chase, the guy who is responsible for The Sopranos. It's ostensibly about the series itself, but it's primarily about Chase and who and what and where, when, how, this guy, what he's all about, and how much of the stuff has a certain biographical tinge to it, blah, blah, blah. What's really interesting to me, though, and I did not know this before, and maybe somebody out there in the crowd does, without giving too much of this away, when The Godfather was written by Mario Puzo, a lot of people tried to guess who's who. The Johnny Fontaine character, loosely based on Frank Sinatra, loosely based on a story which Kitty Kelly did not bother to write about in her book, which indicates to me that there may not have been anything to the story, but the story has to do with how Sinatra got the role in From Here to Eternity. It was, I believe, a Warner Brothers movie. Whatever. The character was supposed to be played by Eli Wallach, and at the last minute, Sinatra got the job. And the story always was that somebody went to whoever the movie head was, and I want to say Jack Warner, but I could be wrong, might have been Louis Mayer, and said, give it to Frank. So Frank gets the gig. Then you also hear the business about the band leader. I ain't no band leader. Well, that was predicated on Tommy Dorsey. Tommy Dorsey, after Sinatra sang with Dorsey's orchestra, and then in the 40s becomes this teenage singing idol. They were called Bobby Soxers, the girls were. Sinatra had this weird contract with Dorsey. The contract was such that Sinatra could leave Dorsey, but for the next 900 years or into infinity, whatever, he had to give Tommy a piece of his action. That lasted about 3 years. And all of a sudden, Tommy signed a release and said, Frank, go away with my blessing. Frank did record an album years later called I Remember Tommy, and I'll bet Tommy remembered Frank. But anyway, That's where that story comes from. And then if you remember the book, there's a Nino Valenti character, very, very, very loosely based on Dean Martin. He didn't make it into the movie at all. In fact, the Johnny Fontaine character was a major player in the book, but in the movie, he basically gets the horsehead scene, and that's it. And that's because of Sinatra. That is because of Frank. They originally wanted, memory serves me correctly, a real singer. Tony Bennett was approached. Frank said, Tony? Tony said no. A bunch of other singers were approached. There was one other singer who I cannot recall who agreed to it and then got a call from Frank and disagreed to it. Martino essentially said, hey, I've dealt with the Philadelphia mob. Sinatra doesn't scare me, okay? And the rest is history. But anyway, to come back to this, now the Godfather himself, the Vito Corleone character, a lot of folks thought that the character was based on a mob don of that era, the guy's name being Vito Genovese. If anybody knows anything about Vito Genovese and having read about that era and Vito, nothing at all like Don Corleone, trust me. But here's the interesting thing, and I find this fascinating. Didn't know this either. Who do you think Mario Puzo loosely based that character on? I will give you a clue. The character that he based it on, the real-life character that he based it on, is one of the major characters in The Sopranos. Let me back up. I'm not saying that right. Yeah, the person he based the character on, a real-life person for Puzo, all right, is a person that you see depicted in The Sopranos. Not the same person, but shall we say the same sort of relationship. Did I ask that? You understand what I'm saying in the other room? Or am I not? Read it back to me. I want to see if you understand. If you're nodding your head. I'm sorry, I got started with this now.
The way I'm hearing this is that Puzo based, who is it?
The Godfather.
The
Vito.
Godfather on one of the characters.
No, you got it wrong.
Okay.
No. I'm sorry I brought this up, but now I got to clarify.
Okay.
Mario Puzo based the character, Vito Corleone, on a real person in his Mario Puzo's life.
Okay.
A real person in Mario Puzo's life. All right? Cut to The Sopranos. There is a character in The Sopranos. A character in The Sopranos who is the same, is a stinker, okay? And it mirrors the person that Puzo based The Godfather on, okay? You got me? You with me on this? I hope so. I have a feeling nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. Hello, Carolyn.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's all right, Carolyn. I don't know what I'm talking about either, Marie, but what about the police commander?
Okay, I was just going to say, I agree with you about, if you had a friend who was a cop and you got in trouble, you would ask them to come and help you. I have several members of my family who are police officers who've been called in to help occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the commander knew what she was doing and probably knew that she was going to be, called to the carpet for it, especially with all the other police officers there.
Well, I'm sure, and also keep in mind, I'm not defending her in total because I don't know the whole story, but she's had difficulties with that department anyway, which means there are people out to nail her anyway because there was 8 zillion shades of politics involved in this woman and her career. She's a controversial figure within the department, okay?
Yeah, I know.
So
I've heard things about her before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the interesting part is that she thought she could get into this and get away with it. That's the part that nails me.
Well, I'm hoping that she didn't think she was going to get in and get away with it. I think she just more or less figured she would just go and help her friend,
and that might be.
The chips fall where they may.
And if that be more power to her, because with all the politics being involved and the history being involved and other police being there, that's what I said to myself. She surely must have known that she was going to be nailed on this. And maybe she just said the hell with it in the name of friendship, which if she did, more power to her.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.
All right, let's see if anybody knows the answer to my question because I answered it so horribly, or asked it rather. Charles, hello there.
Good afternoon, Uncle.
Hi.
From my reading of The Godfather and what I've read afterwards, I think it was Frank Costello.
No. Let me back up. A lot of what you see in The Godfather, okay, in terms of the crimes and all the rest of it, is loosely based on mobology of the 40s and 50s. But the character is actually sort of based on somebody who had nothing whatsoever to do with the mob. Nothing whatsoever to do with the mob. Line number 3. Hey, John.
Well, you just ruled me out because I was going to guess Paul Castellano.
No, you want to know who Puzo based it on?
Yeah, sure.
His mother.
Oh, God.
His mother. His mother wasn't a member of the mob or anything, but that's the kind of controlling so-and-so that his mother was. And David Chase based Livia of The Sopranos on his mother.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, according to everybody associated with The Sopranos who knew David Chase years ago, his mother was nuts. An absolute goofball. He did not have a very pleasant childhood. So much of, what's her name on the show? Livia is based on Chase's real. That's not his real name, by the way. David Chase has I can't recall the name. It's Italian. I just cannot remember what it originally was. The story went on to talk about how Puzo, the essential personality, controlling factor, the mother, the marionette, pulling the strings on this, that, and the other thing. That was supposedly the inspiration for the character. Other things in the book, yeah, loosely based on this, loosely based on that. But Puzo also said that he never was really close to anybody in the mob. It was just some newspaper accounts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when I read that, I thought to myself, whoa. Because I think we would all agree, if you know the TV show, The Sopranos, Tony Soprano's mother is the mother from hell, to say the very... Can you think of anybody whose mother was worse than that woman? Who was the worst? This isn't Mother's Day, is it? No. The worst mother in the history of filmdom. Joan Crawford? Could be. Joan Crawford was a mother from hell. Anybody else with a mother from hell? It's a terrible thing to say. 333-1360-412, area code, pound 1360 if you're a Verizon Wireless user. I mean, there have been mothers, well, Postcards from the Edge, if you know anything about that movie. Well, she wasn't bad. She was just nuts. That was Carrie Fisher writing supposedly loosely based on her mother, Debbie Reynolds, who may or may not have had an affair. Now, let me ask a question. This is a really cool, sick question, okay? I can't believe I'm bringing this one up. Debbie Reynolds, who just turned 75 the other day, there was always a rumor. Eddie Fisher, one of the many, well, she's only married a couple of times. She's married to Eddie Fisher, and then she married a guy named Harry Carl. That's an interesting story. Debbie Reynolds marries this guy, Harry Carl. He marries her career. And he dies. And upon his death, she finds out they not only don't have no money, they're in debt up to their eyeballs. She worked her butt off. And there's even a Debbie Reynolds museum or something in Vegas. I don't know if it's still there, but it was. She had to work her tail off to become solvent again because this guy managed her career right into the economic gutter. Same thing happened to Doris Day. She was married to Marty Melcher's father, Terry Melcher's father, Marty Melcher. I think that was the guy's name. Yeah, Terry Melcher was with the Ripcords, blah, blah. Same thing. The guy dies. She finds out she owes everybody and his brother because he's been ripping off money left and right. But anyway, let's get to the evil rumor. Debbie Reynolds and what female supposedly had a fling, according to Eddie Fisher? I know I'm dating myself, but I'm an old guy. What do you want? If you believe Eddie, and if you believe the Hollywood hubbub down through the years, Debbie supposedly had this affair with this other actress lady who was a known lesbian, I might add. If you know the answer to this one, 3331. When I read it, it was like, this is worse than Sir Laurence Olivier and Danny Kaye. I still can't get over Sir Laurence Olivier and Danny Kaye meeting in airports. It's just something... Danny Kaye, I could understand. The man used to skip on national television but Sir Laurence Olivier? Man was married to Vivian Leigh and Joan Plowright, for crying out loud. Another shocking spectacle unraveled before the Omega. So you all know who Debbie Reynolds is. And by the way, this chick that she supposedly had the affair with, I'm trying to think if I can give you a clue. No, I can't. Let's take a break. AM 1360. All right, on this ridiculously stupid question, even for this ridiculously stupid show, Debbie Reynolds. Tammy's in love. The old hootie, and the blowfish. Whatever happened to the hootie and the blowfish? I just sort of went the way of probably playing a car wash in Encino or something. Anyway, there was always a story, and Eddie Fisher added to it, and Debbie Reynolds threatened to sue him, excuse me. But I guess she didn't. And I'll give you a clue. The other lady, yes, Durwood. All right, Durwood. I'll give you a clue. It's not Durwood Kirby. Who is it? 333-1360-412, the area code, pound 1360 if you're Verizon. Hello, Bob in Curriopolis.
Doug, I'll take a wild stab. Two come to mind. Agnes Moorehead or the secretary on Beverly Hillbillies.
Nancy Culp.
Oh, yeah, Culp. Yeah.
Well, if you heard me do Durwood, if you remember, Samantha's husband's name was Darren.
Right.
And Agnes Moorehead always called him Durwood or Dumbo. Oh. It was Agnes.
Oh, it was Agnes. My third guess was Andy Williams. But
Andy Griffith would have been my guess, but or Don Knotts. Well, yeah, it was Agnes Moorehead. They supposedly had a bit of a fling. Agnes Moorehead, you could see that. You know, Debbie Reynolds. Somebody asked me, was it you or someone else? Can't remember. They asked me, were you ever surprised to find out that this person or that person was homosexual? And they meant it in the, I knew who it was. They meant it in terms of, public celebrity types. And I said no, but I gave a personal example. But I will go back, but I will not mention the name because, well, I just won't. I had this woman on one time. She actually had a talk show, national talk show, for a period of time. Her name was Dr. Irene Casorla. She was the psychoanalyst to the stars. And she had been on this one television show like 9 million times. And I say, here's a woman been on the so-and-so show 9 million times, knows more about so-and-so than so-and-so, his wife and his kid. And I did that throughout the interview, kidding around. We take a break, and I said to her off the air, obviously, I said, by the way, how is so-and-so? And without missing a beat, she says, well, he just broke up with his boyfriend and blah, blah, blah. And then the trumpet player's jealous, blah, 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 blah. She's just going on, chattering about. And I said, wait a minute, back up from me. Are you telling me that so-and-so is gay? And then I said the most stupid thing you could possibly. Man's been married for 100 years. He's got 4, which doesn't mean squat. And she looks at me and puts her hands up to her face like this. She said, oh, my God, I forgot. I'm not in Hollywood. I'm in Pittsburgh, meaning I'm not in Oz anymore. I'm not in Kansas anymore. She just forgot. She was talking to somebody who she thought knew, as everybody in Hollywood knew, that this guy was gay. And I was stunned by it. I really and truly was stunned. It took me years to get used to it. And I never heard another word about this particular individual, except there was a story a number of years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, in one of the tabloids where this guy claimed that he was this fella's toy boy. All right? And there was a big lawsuit, and I think the guy lost the suit, which is why I'm not bringing up the other guy's name. But I couldn't believe it. And then she said something about he had an affair with the trumpet player. Of course, right away I thought, is Roxanne Pulitzer in the room? My brain. But the funny thing about the trumpet player, and that blew me away too, because the trumpet player was a noted womanizer. I mean, this guy was a womanizer of the first order, and the only reason I know that is because he and Lenny Bruce used to go catting together, and they used to share needles together, because this guy was a heroin addict at one time, quite recovered, and blah, 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 blah. That one nailed me. You could have knocked me over with a feather when she told me that one. Larry in the car. Hello there.
Hello, Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you gave out the question, I kind of had two guesses. One was Barbara Stanwyck, but the other was Agnes Moorehead. But what scared me about that is I know that you always lusted in your heart after Samantha. I lusted after Agnes Moorehead.
Well, if you go back to the 40s, what was the movie? She was in Sorry Wrong Number. I think it was Sorry Wrong Number. Agnes Moorehead was a babe at one time. And let me tell you something, pal. I don't know if you've ever been in a gay bar with gay women, but I have in my life, and not all of those women look like middle linebackers.
They don't.
There are some tremendously attractive women who just happen to go in that direction.
Yep.
Look, it could have been worse. I respect you for saying Agnes Moorehead, but I would have lost all respect for you if you said you had a crush on Aunt Clara.
No, not Aunt Clara.
And Marion Lauren. Thank you for going. Marion Lauren, by the way, is the woman. You remember Aunt Clara, don't you? She is the one that taught Anderson Cooper how to talk. A lot of people are not aware of that. And now here's Anderson Cooper. Another gentleman. That's all, folks. Exactly. Oh,
it's interesting. Boy. I mean, Mike, when you interviewed Michael Musto,
yeah,
he had that term.
Hardly a man in the closet, by the way. Which I love about Michael. Michael is just so cool.
But he had a term for it, and he called it gaydar.
Yeah, gaydar, right.
And, yeah.
He said, Michael Musto said, and I believe Musto. I believe Musto for a couple of reasons. He is so tremendously sharp. He is really into gay. And he's from New York. All right, so right away I get the guy. Michael Musto claimed he could tell by looking at your record collection. He could tell by looking at the decor of your home whether you were straight or gay. And you want to know something? I bet he's right. I haven't always been right. I certainly wasn't right about this guy on television. I'll tell you at 5 o'clock, Greg, who it is. I had a guy one time I worked with, and we were about the same age. I'll simply call him Riggo, because that was his nickname. We called him Riggo. I used to have to write guys. I used to do initials, and he was RGO. So he was Riggo. I was De. My other buddy was Wah. John G. Stevenson was Jidges. That's how we talked to each other. Anyway, Riggo was about my age, single guy. And I'm going to say my age. I guess I was 24, 25, something like that. Whatever the hell it was. I was young. And Riggo moved into a house, bought his own house, and he bought this house, and he had a roommate. Guy's name was Ernie, too. I mentioned that because of Borelli was her real name. And I was invited. I'd never met Ernie before. I knew Riggo quite well. And guys were saying, they had never met Ernie either, but they're saying, geez, Riggo's got a male roommate when you're 25, a male roommate, yada, yada, yada. And I said, oh, come on, not Riggo. I mean, I thought my gaydar was perfect. I go to Riggo's place, talk to Bob for about an hour and a half. Ernie was out shopping. Ernie was making dinner, which right away was another clue. And then Ernie walked in. Well, I ain't going to insult anybody by doing an impression of Ernie, but let's put it this way. Compared to this guy, Richard Simmons was James Gandolfini. Okay, there's no other way to put it. Oh, my Lord. And all I could think of was the great Blazing Saddles line, even though this was before Blazing Saddles, when what's-her-name, Madeline Kahn says, "It's true! It's true! It's true!" Oh, man. You're not always right about these things, not that it really matters. Anyway, we have a newscast coming up the last time I looked. See you in 5. Doug Hoerth is my name. Hope you know who you are. Stay close.